Donovan.
All right, welcome into the Donovan Live Postgame Show on this Thursday evening. I'm Dave DeNatale alongside Jim Donovan. Happy to have everybody with us here as we make our way closer and closer to the weekend and closer and closer in Berea, Jimmy, to mandatory minicamp as OTAs continue. And there's been a lot of talk, and I want to get to Odell Beckham, because a lot of things pop up with Beckham this week that had nothing to do with action on the field. But I wanted to get to kind of what's happening on the field out in Berea, and the most important thing is everybody's getting the work in. But what have you noticed when you've been able to be out there, or what have you kind of taken away from OTAs?
Well, I would think that it's really, I think it's good when there's a system in place and it carries over into the next year. So really Freddie Kitchens' offense that was Todd Haley's offense and that was the Browns' offense last year has carried into this year. Now there's some tweaks with it, and there's obviously a big change in personnel when you bring in a wide receiver like Odell Beckham Jr., but that hasn't played out yet on the field, as you say, because he's really only been to one practice or maybe two at the very most. He'll be there next week, though. So, him being a part of it hasn't been visible, but the system is there, and you can see that they're very, very comfortable with it. So Baker Mayfield really stands out. I mean, he really works very, very hard. He just seems to be getting rid of the ball. The ball is really on time. It's quick. He makes really great throws, and he makes great decisions. Now, all of this, of course, is without pads on and without a pass rush and things like that. But at least for now, you can see that he takes every rep, as they say in the business, every play that comes his way as the most important play of the day. And the next one he's going to get a little bit better at, and the next one after that. And he puts in an awful lot of work. And that's really great to see, because sometimes a guy, after he has a breakout year like he had, could come back the next year and kind of say, well, this is going to be easy. Right. I think he realizes the importance of the position and how difficult a position it is to master in the NFL, and I think he has taken on that challenge. The other thing is that Freddie Kitchens he's a good guy, but he's a no-nonsense guy.
Yes.
I mean, he is, a lot of people worried about, well, will he be able to be a disciplinarian? No problem. I mean, he can be a disciplinarian. He can be very sharp with his criticism, but very flowery with his praise. But he's got his thumb on it right now. He really does. The defense is a little different because it is a new system. Right. And it's a dramatically different system that Steve Wilks is going to run as opposed to what Greg Williams ran. So.
And that's going to be a little harder to gauge until we see guys in pads and then certainly preseason action when we get into early August.
Yeah. Now, for instance, today Jarvis Landry, he has a soft tissue injury right now, so he's on the side. He's there, but he's on the side. He's not participating. But you see a guy like Rashard Higgins take full opportunity of that. You see this kid, Dorian Baker. Yeah. He made a couple of plays today. These young guys that are coming in that are really going to have to fight to make this team, especially at wide receiver, because they're very, very deep now at wide receiver. It's really interesting watching these guys play. A guy like Jalen Strong, who's a very quiet signing and a guy that didn't play last year because of a significant ACL injury from the year before, and he's trying to get himself back together, but he has some NFL chops. Right. But again now, he's a guy that's going to have to fight his way through the pack, and first of all, he's going to have to be physically sound, then he's going to have to make his way through, Dino, a lot of traffic at wide receiver. Those are some of the things that strike me right now. I mean, physically, they look like a very gifted team.
They haven't had this much depth at wide receiver ever that I can remember in this expansion era, this new expansion era. I can't remember where basically you already knew going into a season that you're 4 or 5, you basically could put on the board right now and mark it and say that's it. That's pretty rare. Usually the Browns maybe have had 1 or 2, when they had Edwards and Juravicius maybe, or for example, or Kevin Johnson, but not like this.
No, I mean, there were a lot of times that the Browns would go to training camp, play the 4 games, wait for the final cut of all of the teams in the NFL, scoop up a wide receiver or 2 at that point in time, and one or both of those guys might be in the starting lineup for the opening game of the season.
Right.
That's not going to be a problem this year. The other thing I will tell you, and this should be comforting to a lot of people, is that the offensive line, and again, just like with the defense, we're not going to see it in full effect and force until they put the pads on and start hitting come training camp in July. But the offensive line looks very good, but very deep.
Yes.
To the point where they're taking a guy like Austin Corbett, and they did it a lot today, and they put him at center again. And the reason they're doing that is because last year they found themselves in a bad spot in that they really truly didn't have a defined backup center when Treader had that high ankle sprain
and
all
had to
year
play
long.
through it.
And he played through it all year long. But in a lot of cases, he might have been better suited to really not play a couple of games, but they didn't have an answer at that. So they are really, paying the insurance ahead right now and making sure that the guys on that offensive line, too deep, definitely too deep, that they can play a number of positions. So Corbett might be, and I think is being penciled in as the starting right guard, but they want to give him as much time at center just in case a guy like Treader, who has had a, he's had a past filled with some injuries at Green Bay, and then again last year with the Browns, that could be a big problem, especially with a quarterback that's as precious as Baker Mayfield.
And that, to me, this is the perfect time of year to do something like that.
Yeah.
To get reps, even in practice, even just in walkthroughs, get reps and get yourself prepared to be as versatile as you can. Okay, so this is happening while, we found out yesterday, or I think it was yesterday, Odell Beckham's got a orange Rolls Royce that's just beautiful. Today, Nike put out the commercial with Beckham and Barkley and Khalil Mack, and basically Odell is shedding the Giants and wearing those Browns color rush jersey and the thing. I mean, all this is happening and it's great, but I'm sure fans are anxious to see him back on the field in a Browns uniform. And it sounded today like Freddie Kitchens is, again, understanding of this is the rule. It's not mandatory, but, he'd like to see his star receiver on the field.
Yeah, and I think Freddie walks the line pretty well on this storyline, because this is a big storyline, and it's been weekly now. Where is Odell Beckham Jr.? Well, it's voluntary. And Freddie understands that it is voluntary, and that's the CBA agreement. It's in there, okay? It's a product of it. It's happening not only in Cleveland, it's happening all over the NFL, that big-name players are not going to these voluntary OTA practices, but will be there at the mandatory minicamp. But Freddie also comes out and says, hey, listen, it would be great to have him here.
Right.
I'd like him to learn the offense. I'd like him to have some chemistry with Baker Mayfield. And he made a point today to say, every receiver that Baker throws to, the ball has to be in a different spot because nobody has the same, exit on a cut. Higgins might cut a certain way, and Baker knows that because he throws to him all the time and threw to him all year last year. And Jarvis Landry probably has a different exit point on the cut when he makes a slant or some kind of elaborate route that they have in their offense. And right now, there aren't the reps with Odell Beckham Jr. Adam Henry spoke at great length. That's the wide receiver coach. But remember, he coached Odell Beckham Jr. And Landry together at LSU. And he just says, this is going to be an incredible show. And this is going to be an unbelievable show when these two get going. And then you throw Callaway and all the other guys in too. But this is going to be something to watch because these two guys know how to play together. They root for each other. And you put this with a quarterback that can get them the ball in the right spot, and you have the potential for some pretty dynamic stuff.
And I go back to what you were saying about Mayfield. Even little things like not winning Rookie of the Year, I think that gnawed at him a little bit in the offseason. I think that, if he didn't need a reason to work harder and get himself in preparation mode for the season, but I think even something like that, lit more of a fire under him to get himself ready here for this season.
Well, I'm going to even isolate a little bit more. He is ticked off about the last game in Baltimore and the last possession, and not the interception, which ended the game, the Mosley interception on 4th down. But there was a pass play just before that that he had Landry open and he missed him. And that has eaten away at him. And that's what drives him.
Wow.
That's the uniqueness of him. But that drives a guy like Tom Brady crazy. Okay, that's why Brady and Julian Edelman and Chris Hogan before that and Amendola when he was there, used to go in the summer to some, distant place and throw passes to each other all day long. And that will happen, I think, even during this break, right after this mandatory minicamp, before they get to training camp. I think Mayfield, Landry, Callaway, and Njoku, and Odell Beckham Jr. will all get together someplace and they'll run routes.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll get done what was supposed to be done during these OTAs.
So we'll start. I mean, I'm amazed. Next week, I mean, we expect we'll see Odell in town. We'll see everybody for mandatory mini camp.
Now the question will be Duke Johnson.
I would say now the one guy who we're not sure about is Duke Johnson. We haven't seen him at all.
Well, if you miss this, okay, if you decide that you're not going to go to it, it is a mandatory thing and it is finable for a team. They can levy a fine on a player if he misses mandatory minicamp. Duke Johnson, I think, is scheduled to make $1.9 million maybe this upcoming season. And when you start subtracting fines for just not showing up, even though you're a little bit glum about what you think your role is going to be with the football team,
it adds up.
It adds up, and it becomes a problem. And I would think that Duke will be here next week. But if he isn't here next week, then we know that this is far more serious than a lot of people initially thought it was.
Yeah, it's
just a little sniff.
You feel like it'd be irreconcilable almost if he can't be here. All right, so that's happening with the Browns. But tonight, what a difference! This is so weird. For the first time since 2015 or 2014, the Cleveland Cavaliers are not in the NBA Finals. That will start tonight as the Raptors will get their shot at the two-time defending champion Golden State Warriors. Toronto's coming into this. We'll get to the Cavs in a second and kind of the backstory. But Toronto's coming into this with a lot of momentum because Kawhi Leonard's playing so well. Whether or not they can conquer the beast that's Golden State, whether or not they have Kevin Durant, they won't have Durant tonight, obviously, but is a whole nother thing. I mean, Golden State's just so tough, Jimmy.
Well, since he got hurt, they've won 5 in a row. Okay, and 3 of the 5 are on the road, which is pretty impressive. I mean, they won in Houston, they won in Portland. I mean, those are difficult places, and even with Durant, they have lost in some of those locales. So, there's a side to them that I think is a little driven to prove that they can win without him, because that's the original band.
Exactly.
Draymond Green, Thompson, and of course Steph Curry. That's the original band that won the one title without him, and in their mind should have won the other one if Draymond Green doesn't get suspended for Game 5 and the Cavaliers then come on and win that series. Now, a lot of people on the other side will say, well, they shouldn't have won the first one because
Irving
Kyrie,
and Love
were out. Okay. I think tonight's a major game for Toronto.
I agree.
I think it's just like last year in the Eastern Conference Final when the Raptors had home court advantage against the Cavaliers and led the whole first game and then let it get off the hook and lost the game and swept and got swept in the series. I think it's kind of the chips are out there that they have to win tonight.
And it was kind of like
it becomes a series if they win.
They win, and it's kind of like the Cavs in Game 1 in Golden State last year when they had the Warriors. They had the Warriors. If you finish that game, you win Game 1. And I'm not saying the Cavs would have won the final last year because I don't think they would have, but I do think it would have probably gone 6 games, and it's a much different scenario. Now you're pushing them back against the wall. I wonder. I don't worry about Kawhi Leonard because he's been there before and he's won championships before with San Antonio. But I just with Kyle Lowry, I wonder about him if he can handle the pressure. If the rest of these Raptors can handle the pressure of dealing with the Oracle, Steph Curry, Draymond getting it between everybody's ears. He's like Green is just. He's a technical foul waiting to happen because he gets in your head. And whether you can handle one of those patented Golden State 14-0 runs that they go on during the course of a game.
Here's the thing too. Toronto has these periods in games where they go ice cold,
Yes.
and they can go 4 or 5 minutes without scoring. They go out of sync. They really do. And it wasn't just against the Cavs in those Eastern Conference Finals the last couple of years. I mean, it happens on a regular basis that they can go cold. You can't do that against Golden State.
No.
They'll bury you in those 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, you'll look up and you're down by 20. I mean, very easily you could be down very quickly. So I think that they have to avoid that in the game tonight. And can they answer this? I mean, they have never been here before,
No.
and Golden State has been there, going on 5 years in a row, and they're trying to three-peat. I mean, they're really chasing some history.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, who's three-peated? I mean, the Bulls,
Twice,
the Celtics.
right? Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is pretty. It's going back to back is amazing in itself. Not many have done that, but I mean, you start talking 3 in a row and 4 in 5 years. I mean, you're elevating the dynasty to a pretty high level.
Yeah, you really are. And it's amazing now that we're in the NBA Finals. And a lot of people are still wondering what's going to happen July 1st.
I know.
Or really now, June 30th, I think you can start doing deals. Free agency. Now, they're sitting in Toronto tonight, and they're thrilled that they're in the NBA Finals, but they're saying to themselves, do we have a snowball's chance in you-know-where of keeping Kawhi Leonard, the guy that got them into the NBA Finals, okay?
Welcome to our world, Toronto.
Yeah. Call the 216, because we know the drill on this. The same thing is going on, I think, with Golden State, because, is Durant going to come back?
Right.
Is he going to play in this series? He's not going to play tonight, as you mentioned. He might practice and be possibly ready, although very doubtful for Game 2, maybe next week, because they get a little bit of a break.
When they go home, I think when they go home is when
But
we
is
see
he
him.
gonna leave?
Yeah.
Is Klay Thompson gonna leave?
Right.
And then all of the other free agents.
Right.
What is Irving going to do?
Right.
What's Kyrie gonna do?
How are the dominoes going to fall? I
Yeah.
mean, but you're right. I mean, today is May 30th, and a lot of NBA fans have already decided this thing is a done deal, and Golden State's going to win again, and everybody's attention's already focused a month from now. That's great, but that's the way the NBA is right now. I mean, everything is about free agency and the summer sweepstakes.
Yeah, it's really the NBA has done a very amazing job, kind of like the NFL.
Yeah.
There is no off season.
Nope.
In the NFL. I mean, you come out of the Super Bowl, and the next thing you know, you're into free agency, you're into the combines and the draft, and then OTAs. I mean, it's amazing how these leagues are able to do this. Baseball truly has a break period.
Yes.
Don't you think, after the World Series?
Yep.
And free agency now is so different in baseball and so quiet.
Yeah. Used to be the hot stove. I mean,
I can remember before Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, John Hart used to, wrap up big free agent signings almost like Christmas gifts for everybody. But in the NBA now, there's no shutdown. I mean, there really isn't, because right after this, the draft, free agency, and bang, the next thing you know, you watch those summer leagues, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, you're already thinking about, okay, it's till September, whatever is training camp starts, and preseason, and the schedule and everything. It's crazy. Can Toronto win at least one game in this series? Can they win this series?
I don't think they can win the series. I think, and I think if they lose tonight, it really becomes a problem, and it becomes like you mentioned. I mean, that was a problem last year with I think sometimes. Like for the Cavs last year, I think you get one shot sometimes to get that, that series kind of get you into the series and tip it your way type of win. And the Cavs didn't get it in the first game, and it then blew up on them, and they got swept. I think that tonight is a big game. Now it's, they're at home.
Yeah.
They'll have the backing of a country, not just a city. They have a backing of a nation up there in Canada, which is pretty cool. But can they handle this stage? They have not handled it in the past, but they didn't have Kawhi Leonard.
No, and that's.
Can he do? But can one player beat this team?
I mean, LeBron needed. I mean, you talked about this. And I think we talked about this. I mean, when the LeBron couldn't beat them alone. Kyrie Irving needed to have, 40-point game in that Game 5 in 2016 out at Golden State in order to get the series back here to play Game 6, and of course they won Game 6, went back to California, won that game. But LeBron couldn't do it alone. I mean, Kyrie Irving was so huge in that series. Kevin Love at times made plays, certainly got a lot of rebounds and everything, and you know, guys like J.R. Smith did their thing.
Yeah.
But as well as Kawhi Leonard is playing, and a lot of people are saying right now he's the best player, he's playing like the best player in the league. I don't think he can carry them alone. I mean, Lowry's got to be big, and the rest of that supporting cast has got to be big.
Yeah, they really, can Van Fleet do it?
Yes.
Can Danny Green's been in a terrible slump.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, can he
But
do it?
but we've seen him if he's on,
Right.
you know, he can hit a lot of big shots for you.
So you're right. But they are facing the ultimate.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are really something. And I also think, Dino, that I think Steph Curry, in the absence of Kevin Durant, has recaptured that team as really the guy on that team. I mean, his games in Houston, his games in Portland on the road have been magnificent that they were able to pull that off. And I think he is driven to do this. Now, they've been off a while.
Yeah.
You know, what are they, 10 or 11 days?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
tough.
that's going to be a factor, too, tonight.
Yeah. Watch also, Cousins might be available to play tonight. They
Yeah.
might, you know, so he might be out there. You know, I would use him on a second, you know, as part of your second team, and you know, with that time in that late first, early second quarter, you know, utilize him, see what he can do. All right, that'll do it for us. Jimmy, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
We'll see everybody back here next week. Thanks for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show on WKYC's Facebook Live.